forgot I forgot about the headset, and I was trying to get it through my speakers.
Oh, okay. Right on, right on. All right. Thanks for joining us, man, Fred.
Oh, you're
Appreciate it,
welcome.
man.
Based community-driven streaming media. This is The Voice 17104.com from the Allison Hill District of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Now broadcasting community radio from Studio A and community television from Studio B on The Voice 17104.com.
All right, all right, all right. And welcome to the Nate Gadsden Show. Always glad to have you as a viewer to this program here on The Voice 17104 Harrisburg. And I'm glad to have tonight my brother Fred Waters. Fred, I appreciate you coming on, man. And I'll be honest with the audience, man. I got to you today, and you still said yes. And I appreciate that big time, man.
You're
Fred
welcome.
is a martial artist, an expert in self-defense and also in protecting oneself. And so I wanted to have Fred come on tonight to talk about his work and what he does, but also to address the question. Fred, we've had a lot of random acts of violence lately, man. I mean, you know, people just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I don't care where you are, a supermarket, you know, at your home, people knocking on doors and acting crazy, just walking down the street. It's just going crazy. So what's your take on that, man? What do you think is the cause for some of this stuff? What's happening?
Well, number one, there's a bunch of laziness going on. Right now, it don't make sense people robbing anybody. It don't make sense no matter what time it is, what year, what day. It doesn't make sense to rob somebody. But today, they are giving jobs out, bonuses. Anybody, I mean, this is just my opinion. Anybody that gets caught robbing anybody should get 20 years in prison, because they're giving jobs away, giving second chances. Guys getting out of prison getting jobs. If you want to get your act together, this is the time to do it now, where there's so many opportunities for anyone. And I haven't been keeping up with the news on everybody getting robbed. I hear a lot of things out of town. It depends, you know, on the websites I'm on, but people got to be vigilant, and you got to report it. And the best way to do it is get you some type of security camera at your home that you can always videotape these people doing this stuff, because it don't make sense.
And you know, that's interesting that you said it. We just had one installed here at our place, and our daughter Terry, she had put one in her own, you know, place, and she said to her mom, you know, hey, you know, you may want to look into this. So she came over and put it in for us. Man, it's amazing. You know, you can see any and everybody comes up to your door, you know, the whole 9 yards. I can be sitting somewhere else, and you know, at work or someplace, and someone rings my doorbell, I can talk to them and see them and all that stuff. So it does make quite a difference. Yeah, they just had a couple things on the news where one guy in particular just walked up to the house and took packages off the door and all this kind of stuff. And another guy just tried to scam a elderly lady, tried to say he was her grandson, and he's going to show up and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And the police were inside the house waiting for him. And he came up and she handed him an envelope full of socks, and he thought it was money. And they come out and jumped on the dude. So there's some crazy people out here, man. You know. So
he needs to go to jail.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's sitting there right now. But the other thing is, though, we do have people who are literally hurting and killing people out of no place. I mean, you know, back when the pandemic was jumping, I would say 2021, 2020, we had a lot of Asian people who were being attacked on the streets, broad daylight, you know, and that was just crazy. But I'm telling you, man, we have folks doing all manner of stuff. But anyhow, let's just talk about, I know you have been a martial. How long have you been in martial arts, taking up the sweet science and, you know, doing this stuff?
I think one of the times when I was on your show before, I think I had hair, didn't I?
Oh man, I wouldn't know, brother, because I'm getting it myself.
Yeah, but I've been in it. I think right now it's either 49. I'm coming up on 50 years.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, it's coming up on, because last year I got an award, and I think, I was 48 years last year. So I'm coming up on my 49th year now.
Fantastic.
So I've been in, I started when I was, I think, 18 years old, when I had an afro.
Okay. Man, the fro.
Yeah, hey, I remember
taking them blows, huh?
I had my plaits were hanging down on my shoulder.
All right now.
But ain't no plaits hanging no more.
no, brother, no way. But all seriously, man, what made you go into martial arts? I mean, why? You know.
Well, what really started it off, well, back when Bruce Lee, he came out back in the day,
Oh
and
yeah,
Enter the Dragon and Green Hornet. And what
yeah.
happened was, it was a gang in Harrisburg, and
Hmm.
that's what really got me into it, because a guy pulled a knife on me, and it was a butcher knife, but it was at night. It looked like it was
I hear you.
huge, because the
Yeah,
moon, and I was right there at 13th, what's that, 13th? No, 15th and her. You know where the cemetery is? I
yeah.
was on 15th Street, and
Okay.
they had me circled. I was out at, at a party somewhere coming back. They used to have house parties back in them days when it was
Yeah,
safe.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they had me surrounded, and the guy pulled out a knife on me, and I wrapped my pleather. It wasn't a leather coat, it was a hand-me-down from my dad, a pleather. I wrapped that around my arm when I seen him doing a James Bond movie, and he was cutting the coat, and there was a hole. I ran. Maybe
Uh,
I probably could outrun Hussein Bolt at the time, but that's what got me really started into martial arts. And I started, I had to worry about the gang when I was going to William Penn, and there was always somebody trying to fight. And when I got to John Harris, it was still going on.
mm,
And when I was at the auditorium at John Harris, they Walter Dobson, he's deceased now, but it was the Golden Dragons. They were training there in the auditorium. And I
okay.
went down one day after school and was watching them. And I decided this is what I wanted to do, because, you know, I wasn't a fighter and I wasn't
Yeah.
a lover either. So, so, the thing of it is, you go to school scared. I was carrying one of my barbells without the weights, but what you put the barbells on, I
Yeah,
had
yeah.
that taped up going to school, and, and it was bad, and thank God nothing ever happened at the time, but
Yeah.
that's what got me started.
Man, so you literally started martial arts out of necessity.
I had to.
Yeah, trying to protect yourself, and isn't that sad though that here you are in your own community, just trying to go to school and mind your business and all that, and you have to be surrounded by a bunch of knuckleheads, someone pulling a
Yes.
knife on you.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. So do
And
you really feel that the martial arts that you got into really got you to a level where you felt confident that you could handle yourself?
well, yes, at the time, here's the difference. A lot of people think that all martial arts are the same. It's
Mm,
not. Now, I
okay.
studied the Okinawan style of Ishinryu, and and now I go over in Japan, Okinawa. So that's
Mm-hmm.
what my system was created there, and it taught you how to punch, kick, break boards, and all that. Well,
Mm,
Bruce Lee said boards don't hit back,
that's
but
right.
I know I could break somebody's nose if I hit them,
All
or
right.
break an arm, or or with a kick. So
Mhm.
back then, I did not know what I know now,
Okay.
because at the time back then, I was scared to fight because I was scared I'd get hurt. Now
Okay.
today, I'm scared to fight because what I might do to somebody.
There you
You know what I
go.
mean? So
Mm-hmm.
that fear is just a different level of fear of getting hurt, and fear of what you can do to somebody. But
Yeah.
that's what got me really started in it. And then doing Ishinryu karate, we were taught how to punch, break, and we were basically like, we were basically like robots.
Yeah.
You built your body up. If I did a block, my
Mm-hmm.
block was supposed to break your arm. That's
Mm.
how we trained. It's different. See, that's a different style of,
Okay.
if a Korean style of Taekwondo, where they do like 95% kicks. They don't
Mm-hmm.
worry about, worry about speed. We
Okay.
in Ishinryu, we worried about raw power. I mean,
Mm.
you built your body up where you could take hits. And it's like Kyle Kushika. It was similar to that system. I mean, we didn't have no gear. We didn't even have cups.
Wow.
You
Wow.
know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
telling you, the day, and I don't want to talk bad about the youth today, but the way the system is with lawyers and getting sued, it's
Mm-hmm.
not like it used to be. The young
Yeah.
kids today in certain systems or certain schools, they don't train like we used to. The floor
Mm-hmm.
would be slippery. We had down in Stilton, where the that Legion, that at a club or whatever they got on the corner down by UPS. They got the
Absolutely. Yeah.
candy. Well, we used to be in that building next to that. Now the floor would get slippery. We would slip and fall. We say, Sensei, the floor is wet. He says, so? He says, if you find somebody in the wintertime, you're gonna say, wait till spring or summer until the ground dries up. So it was totally different. Yeah. So it was totally different the way we trained. We fell, we got hurt, we got up. Nobody sued the instructor. Today, you got kids, you know, they get a little punch on the arm. Oh, mommy gonna sue. You know, so it's totally different. You know.
Let me ask you this then, Fred. Is it still popular? I mean, back when I was coming up, and then you know, in your era and everything, and like you said, the Bruce Lee movie made that thing really jump off.
Yeah.
Everybody was jumping into it, trying to do a little something until they got hit. But is it as popular today at the schools and all that as it was back when you were coming up?
Yeah. It's popular, but here's the thing, you know, it depends on what school you go to. Some schools, it's all about this here. It's about the money. And, you know, and I don't like talking about people's school. I only talk about the schools that I go to, and I train people at their schools. There's a couple good schools around here. And there might be other ones I haven't been to because I haven't been to nobody's school in about over a year and a half. I stay home because of COVID.
Yeah.
I got my own dojo right here in my house, so I don't have to go nowhere. But yeah, there's a couple schools that's still a little hardcore. Now, like I was with the Golden Dragons, the original Golden Dragons out of Stilton, Pennsylvania. Back and everybody, you can look that up. You know, and we banged back then. You remember Ronnie Burnett?
Absolutely.
Up at the Y?
Yes.
Yep. He had a good school. His was Taekwondo. And Walter Dobson with the Golden Dragon. So we banged a lot, you know, back in the day. And they taught us the right way. If you got punched in the mouth, keep going. What are you gonna do? Stop? And you know, it's totally different.
Let's talk about that. Since you brought up Ronnie Burnett, though, he was one of the guys who, you know, I looked up to and saw him in action quite a bit. But there were a lot of guys back then. So, you know, Ali Muhammad. Talk about him for a minute. Remember Ali over at the Broad Street
Brother
Market?
Ali.
Yeah, Brother Ali.
Yeah. Oh, he was good. Oh, yeah. Because I always talk to him all the time down at the market. And when what's his name? Professor when Powell came in down at the Holiday Inn.
Moses Powell.
Moses Powell, yeah. I met him for the first time. And I tell you what, Brother Ali, boy, he was smooth. For a big guy, he'd do a roll on the floor, you wouldn't hear him. I mean, he was good. And you know, so you know, I being that we never got to do nothing together. You know, I used to train at a school. Well, I used to teach over the school where he used to be at, off of Paxton Street. But we never really got to. We sit down and talk about things, but we really, you know, because we had the same theory, and you know, and the way we think, other people go, "Oh my gosh, I couldn't do that," but he was for real. It's the real. He was the real deal. He was the real deal.
And he had a big dojo, and I know he trained a lot of people. But the other guy, he was down on Cameron Street for a while.
Oh, and then,
what's his name? My goodness.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, he's my cousin. I found that out. Preston, yeah. I think he's over in New Cumberland now, isn't he?
I think he's in New Cumberland. I think you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's still doing his thing, he did move to New Cumberland. But he had a big school and was doing a lot of work. And then a good friend of mine told me that down in, Fort Valley, something like that, close to Washington, D.C., there's a big tournament, huge tournament. And I don't know the style, so maybe you're not as familiar with that. But there's a huge tournament every year that still goes on, from what I understand. And he was one of the main organizers of that thing.
You ain't talking about, oh, gee whiz.
It doesn't matter. I know you agree with it. Huh?
This is Joe. I'm trying to think of his name. Well, I don't. You know what? Go ahead. If I know his name.
You know, Jeff Washington. He was big around here as well. Jeff did a lot of training.
Yeah, well, we trained together.
Okay.
Jeffrey and I, we trained. I started in '73. Jeffrey I seen Jeffrey out of John Harris. Him and Pearl Brown training, and that's why I got into it. Geezer. We used to call him Geezer.
Geezer. Richard Brown. Did you know Richard Brown?
Yeah. Richard Brown trained with us too.
Okay. I'm
Yeah,
telling you, man, it loaded from around here. This area
yeah,
was loaded with some outstanding
yeah.
martial
Brian
artists.
Jackson, did you know
Yeah,
him? Yeah, he was a
absolutely.
police officer.
Hmm.
Yeah, we all grew up. We all grew up in school. We all had afros.
I remember Richard had, he was up in the garage area. There is some kind of, whatever, but they were serious, man. I took my boys to that's I'm gonna get my boys to train. Man, them
Yeah.
cats, they didn't last a day. They were, I mean,
Oh
because
yeah.
it was serious, it's ferocious. And he said they may be too young, at the
Yeah, but
time.
but we were taught the right way. It was
Yeah.
hardcore because you come out of that school. If you couldn't fight, you could take a punch. Put it that
Okay.
way. If you
Okay.
could not fight, if somebody hit you, it wasn't going to bother you too much because you was used to getting it in the class.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, one
I'm
of the
looking.
things that I want you to speak on also was that back in the day, also, and maybe
Mhm.
even today, I'm sure even today, there were a lot of people winning for the wrong reasons. They
Oh
went in to
yeah,
learn to become fighters, and they start, and so actually, they say when you really get good at the martial arts at any level, any discipline, I'll say it that way, you learn how not to fight.
exactly.
Right?
Oh
So
yeah,
you
you
become more
don't want
disciplined
to.
as a person. Yeah.
Yeah, you see, that's the thing about it. And I found this out personally for myself. When
Mhm.
I was out of shape, I wanted to prove how tough I was, how tough I was.
I
And that's
got
what
you.
happens when you don't know how to fight and you think you know how to fight, you're trying to prove something to yourself.
Yeah.
Now, once you learn how to do those things to people, you
Hmm.
don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, when you think about how you can destroy somebody's body, and
Yeah.
I've had it happen where people really tick your. I'm human, just like everybody else. People
Hmm.
tick
Hmm.
me off, and a couple times, somebody start throwing wolf tickets, and for example, I was
Hmm.
teaching over at City Island for the Armed Forces Day event, training the military in close quarter combat, and
Hmm.
a guy got mad at me because I had weapons, and he got mad because I was letting other kids, like they were in the Boy Scouts, but
Hmm.
they used guns. They were in these groups where they went out and hunt. They knew about guns, but
Yeah.
the kids here in the city, they don't know anything about guns, and I didn't want them to grab hold of a weapon, even though they were training weapons, and
Hmm.
then hurt somebody. And they go say, "Well, where'd you get that from?" I don't want nobody saying, "Well, we seen that guy. He did." No, but the
Hmm.
bottom line is, the guy got mad at me and started throwing wolf tickets at me, talking about call me names, getting smart, and it made
Oh.
me mad. And
Hmm.
and so in my mind, I already did something to him, and he didn't even know it
I hear
because
you.
because the thing of it is, in my mind, if he would come up to put his hands on me, I'm
Hmm.
gonna punch him in the throat. That
Yeah.
would have been
Yeah.
it.
You
The
were
fight's
already in
over
the
with.
yeah. Oh, speaking of it being over with, The Art of War. That book was real popular at one time, and
Hmm.
that was about that. How you try to end the fight as quickly as possible.
Oh yeah, you
That's what I
got
was
to.
told. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
you have to because today, I'm not. Let me see. Saturday, I'll be 67.
Okay.
I'm yeah, 67 years old, man,
Come
and
on,
that's a
man.
blessing. So
Yeah, yes, it is.
yeah,
I didn't know you
so
were up in this rarefied air, brother.
I
That's all
creeped
right.
up on me, man.
Yeah, man.
But the thing of it is, I'm nothing like I used to be back when I was a teenager.
Uh-huh.
But I don't have back when I was a teenager, I had the stamina, the strength, and everything. Now I
Mhm.
have the knowledge. So
Okay.
the best way to look at that is when you look at these kung fu movies, even though it's a movie,
Oh, yeah.
but you look at the grand masters, why they always win. They're
Mm.
not jumping up all this stuff. Some of them doing these backflips. That's TV. That's funny stuff. But
Yeah.
I laugh at that stuff. But you ain't doing that stuff in real life. I go
Oh,
to
Lord.
back start hurting.
Yeah.
But that's why the Grand Masters always win in these movies because they have all the experience. It's not about all that the jumping around and all the bulging muscles. No,
Mhm.
it's just a couple good techniques. That's how you stop a person. I'm not going to be jumping around like that. Hey, breakdancing's over with in my life.
There you go. Hey, you about mine too, brother. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar actually studied under Bruce Lee.
Yes.
And I understand he got really upset with the Tarantino movie that came out a year or two ago, where they portrayed Bruce Lee in a negative light, where this guy beat him up and all that. It was a really good movie in the sense that it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek movie, but It showed
Jackman you
you.
talk about? Is that what
Uh,
that Jackman that came from China to fight him or something?
no, no, not that one. That was
Oh,
good too. No, this is the one where it's not about Bruce Lee at all. But all of a sudden in the movie, because they're in Hollywood, they're making this film,
mhm.
and this guy's real. I think it was one of the big stars. We know him. He played the role. But anyhow, he's a tough guy, but he doesn't act like a tough guy. And he's just kind of walking around. But when things happen, he's like, "What?" And he just busts these guys up. And he encounters Bruce Lee on a movie set. And so Bruce Lee's going through all this stuff, and he just looks at him like, saying, "Hmm." And so then, Bruce Lee, I guess, challenges him, or he does whatever, and he really beats Bruce Lee up pretty bad. And Richard really got upset about that because he thought that it was just so disrespectful,
Oh,
to portray him like that. I think it was Brad Pitt played the role,
oh,
and
okay.
but also the movie was really about the Sharon Tate murders when they killed all those people, Charles
And cut the
Manson.
baby out and stuff like that.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's right. And so they really showed the opposite reverse. I mean, in other words, all the people that came to kill Sharon Tate and all them, they got killed, kind of thing. It was
Mhm.
crazy. But I say that simply because, I remember Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's distaste for that, because he says that, the science was real, and he thought that Bruce Lee was real. He said this guy
Mhm.
was a phenom, and then to betray him like that was just so disrespectful. But
Well,
anyhow,
they do anything for money.
they didn't do anything for money.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, they do think that it's just all kind of cartoonish and all that kind of stuff. But the martial arts is real stuff, isn't it? I
Oh, it's
mean,
just as real as we talking. It's
hey
just as
man,
real as we talking.
and a lot of people don't quite get that. So they don't want to talk all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, interesting stuff. I saw a video where they trained, I think it was in Russia, and this guy was an undercover police officer, and they were going to arrest this guy. This was a documentary. It wasn't something that was made up. And the
Mhm.
guy walks up, and he's like standing next to him, and he literally just does a kick. He kicks his leg and hits the guy. I mean, knocks him out cold. But he's standing right next to the guy, and he just brings his leg up, just boom. But he's a cop. He's an actual cop, and they were showing how they actually do use the martial arts there, a lot, in
And that
terms
was
of.
real?
Oh yeah, no, it's real, yeah.
Oh.
And they were showing you, and this guy just out of nowhere, the little short, this kind of short guy, he comes up, and this guy's standing on the corner. He's trying to go across the street, but he's a criminal. They were after him, and he didn't realize this guy was a police officer. And the guy looked around, all of a sudden he just one kick, man. The guy was out cold. It was like what, you know. But yeah, they said that a lot of guys who really know their stuff, because we talk about ninjas and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, is that real?
Yeah,
So
but see,
we
the
said,
thing of it is,
"Mhm.
if you do a sneak attack like that, the other person doesn't expect it. Yes, it can happen. It
Oh
can
yeah, yeah.
happen that way because but everybody can't kick like that.
No, no.
And
Everybody
so
can't kick like that.
yeah,
Mm-mm.
and
Yeah.
they call them dragon kicks or whatever, like in Kung Fu. I've seen people bring their leg up here and you stand behind them and kick you in the face. Yeah, they can do it. Only way
Yes.
my leg gonna get it like that, somebody got to cut it off and just set it back there.
But that's the key. All that this stuff. Some of it looks cartoonish, but you know what? It is real for some people because they can do it.
Yeah.
But you can't do what everyone else can do. And that's the key, right? So
Yeah.
tell me this: why did you take up the style that you took up as opposed to other styles? I mean, there's jujitsu, there's karate, going down the line. But you settled on, you said Ishinru.
That was my first style. That's the first
Okay.
system I ever studied. And
Uh-huh.
and I did that because it was at John Harris and it was a necessity at the time.
Got you.
Then I left to go into the military. Then I
Okay.
got to study different styles because of where I was stationed at. And in the military, you got guys that were coming in from Korea, they were teaching Taekwondo. Then you got
Mm.
people teaching Chinese boxing, Kung Fu and stuff. I met so many people. I was like, it's almost like if you're, when people are into cooking, when they have different shows on, they want to learn, oh, how do you cook an Italian and Mexican food and all kind of different ways to cook. That's where I was with the martial arts.
Okay.
Anybody talk about martial arts, they said they had a black belt, a green belt, a white belt. I wanted to learn something
All
because
right.
I was hungry. And
Mm.
besides, I wasn't doing nothing else. I was in the military,
Yeah.
doing my job in the military. When I got off work, it was just like a regular job, 8 to 4, 6 to 4, whatever. And when I didn't have duty, I was at the gym and I met guys that claimed to be really big and stuff, which found out that they weren't, because
Okay.
I beat them. They
Yeah.
walk around in basic training. The guy had this medallion that he was a monk. And everybody's like, oh, he's a Shaolin monk, and my ears are like this here, talk about some martial arts. So I got to talk to the guy and he says, yeah, I'm a Shaolin monk. I said, how'd you do that? I'm gullible, man. We went to the gym to work out. A bunch of guys went there. He wasn't no Shaolin monk.
I got you.
We got the kicking around there, and he got the running around the gym. But you know what? It was so much fun. We didn't do it to hurt each other, but everybody tells you something. And then when I was at Fort McClellan, I was stationed there down in Alabama. I've been to Germany and studied over there, but I'm just thinking of the funny things that happened. The guys said, yeah, we just got back from South Korea. He was over in Seoul, stationed over there. Yeah, we studied over there. I'm a brown belt and I'm a black belt. Well, I guess they were, because I was on the floor. Yeah, I got my butt whipped a whole lot of times, but it was fun. They didn't hurt me, but I wound up being on the floor a lot more than I was standing up. But I was younger, I was stronger, and I was in shape. So it was fun. I got to learn from a lot of people, man.
Well, let's shift gears for a minute here, man, and talk about, the average everyday person, especially women, men too. I shouldn't just say women. Listen, people need to learn how to protect themselves. You never know what's going to happen out there these days. If someone has a gun and a bullet, there's not a whole lot you can do or anything, right? But
it depends if you're trained. Now, I'm going to say, let me say this here. Let me see, that's the camera right here. If I can touch the camera, if I'm close enough to touch it, or let me see, here, if I can touch this here, if you're properly trained, there's a chance you might get shot, and there's a chance you might not. It depends on how good that person is with the firearm. But everything is, you're not going to telegraph like, and then do it. It can be done. Nate, I train military. I used to train military how to disarm weapons. I trained a lot of people in the government. I trained a lot of people, trust me. And it can be done. But if a person knows how to do it, you're going to get a cap bust in your butt, because they're not going to give you a chance. But it's all a surprise. That's all it is. It's not one of these things that's telegraphed. It just happens. And, once, like I just put something up on the internet today about, training people, doing some private lessons. I'm just going to do, somebody wants to do it, I will send them. They tell me what they want to know and I'm going to show them. But I can't do weapon disarming because I need somebody here to do it with, and I don't want no cooties. I'm not bringing no cooties in my house.
I hear you.
So yes, it can be done, but you got to be properly trained. And if you're not properly trained, don't try to disarm nobody, because if you grab the weapon wrong, you can get shot. If you have to give up your belongings, and I sound like a hypocrite, because I'm saying for you, give up your belongings and be able to live to tell about it. And I know how I am, I'm gonna check the prostate with it. If I can. And if I can't, I'm gonna do the same thing, get away.
So you have taught, I know we've had this conversation before, where you have taught people basic self-defense techniques.
Yes.
So the woman who's trying to defend herself from, would-be attacker, the guy who's surprised by someone who's trying to, jump him, take his stuff, whatever. And you've taught people that. So can they be taught sufficiently enough to really do it, or would you recommend that they not try to? What would you say to the average person who wants to take some self-defense, courses, self-defense, trainings? Does that empower them, in a dangerous way, because they're probably thinking they're better they are, I took a few hours? Or what's your recommendation on that?
It's good. The first thing to do is find a good self-defense instructor. Everybody that has a karate school isn't teaching good self-defense. I'm just telling you right now.
All right. Okay.
Because a lot of people are doing some goofy stuff when it comes to self-defense. And for the audience out there, it's no joke. You have to study it, because if you're a heart surgeon, you can't just tell me about it and I go operate on somebody. It takes training. You got to train, and you got to work out, and you got to train. There's no one 15-minute, 1 hour class that's going to teach you how to disarm a weapon, or to stop an attacker from attacking you without a weapon. You have to train. You have to train your mind. You have to train your body. You have to train your soul. You have to train your limbs, because you can have all the knowledge and you don't have no strong arms. Somebody throw a punch and boom, you get knocked down because you can't block a punch. You go outside block it. You can't block it. Inside block. If you don't know how to strike and hit pressure points, use it, just from here. If your fingers are strong enough, how can you do some damage? You want to strike somebody down here in the throat, do something, So it takes training, and to find a good instructor, it don't have to be me. Find somebody that really knows what they're doing, because there's a lot of people faking it until they make it, and they making money.
And isn't it true that if you really are not trained and you think you are, you can get yourself killed?
Oh yeah, you wake up in a casket. That's what's gonna happen.
Or maybe you don't wake up.
Yeah, but that's it. If you don't know, and that's it. Back in the day when I act like I knew it, I was lucky I got away. Like I said, I was blessed, because he could have stabbed me in the stomach, stabbed me in the back. I ran. So the main thing about it is the exercise you get, and being in shape means a whole lot between being a victim and not becoming a victim. If a lot of times you can run to get away. You don't have to always fight. You can always run, get away, remember what the person looks like, so you can always tell law enforcement. Now, I say this over and over again. Why call the police and the cop says, what did the person look like? I don't know. How can they arrest? I don't know. You have to take a mental picture of what happened, who they are, where they were at. If you got ear piercings, eye piercings, scars, glasses, I tell people, if something happened, rip them glasses off, rip that chain off and throw it. That's probably all they got anyway. So he's going to pick up the chain. Half of these people don't want to work. So, you got to remember what they look at, but get away so you can report it.
That's good stuff, Fred. That's good stuff, man. And that'll help you. That's part of the self-defense package, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, they always say there are three phases of the encounter. You can either fight, there's flight, and then there's freeze.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want to do is freeze, right?
Yeah, that's right. You freeze and wake up, you won't even have no clothes on your body. Take everything. And I heard that happen to people too. They get robbed, they take everything off of you.
Everything.
Yeah, that's crazy. And you know what though, Nate? And here, I just seen this, and I was going to do a video on this here, and I'm glad you did call, because did you hear what's going on out there? It just happened in North Carolina, I think about a month or two ago, but some woman just got killed a couple of days ago. Now, you ever heard about these they got Chargers and Challengers? You're not a car guy, are you?
No.
Well, these hot cars, I got one too, but my car is not on the list. I got a 300 SRT8. They're going after guys with these RTs, SRT8s, Hellcats, and Red Eyes. They're fast. Dodge cars, they are fast. These criminals are shooting people and taking their cars. They're putting these Apple tracker things up under the car. Did you hear about that?
No.
So they're putting trackers. Yeah, putting trackers on their car. So when the person parks their vehicle, they come and steal it.
Jeez.
But they shot this guy down in North Carolina. It was on camera where they pulled up behind him, bumped his car. He pulls up, he gets out and walks back. 4 guys jump out. He tries to get back in his car. They shot him in the leg. Then he limped over to the side. They was taking his car. They pulled over, took his wallet, and they took his cell phone. Wow. And here's what just happened. A mother, she was 20 or 30 something years old, had her daughter in the car, driving a Hellcat Dodge car. They shot and killed her. Shot her. Just pulled up to the vehicle and shot and killed her. And these fools are crazy.
Did they catch those guys, man?
No, I seen that up on YouTube. I was like, it's a guy that he has a Dodge, and he has a big channel with guys with Mopars, Dodge cars. And he was saying how dangerous these cars are, because these people that they're low lives, low life people want to steal, go get a job. You can get it yourself. It's not that hard.
But Fred, they think that is their job. That's how crazy and delusional they are. I mean, because they're out there, call themselves making money. They probably take their car right to somebody. They take all the parts that they want from it. They get
I
paid,
know. It's crazy.
They don't care about taking a life to do it. That's the craziest thing, man.
It don't make
So-
sense, but people have to be careful about that.
So should middle-aged people, elderly people, even think about taking up courses of, self-protection, martial arts, or should they get a gun? I mean, what should they do, Fred? I mean, it's
All the above. You said it.
all the above.
Yeah.
Now, you
but
do believe in guns, right? Yourself?
what's that?
You do believe in guns yourself?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
You have a gun? Okay, yeah. And you're trained in firearm usage and all that?
Yes. Mhm.
I know you are.
Yeah.
So would you recommend that? And if your person gets a gun, do you recommend that they take courses first?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a must. And like when I was in the military, I shot all type of weapons, but I never shot a handgun in the military. I
Yeah.
shot M16s, shotguns, 60 caliber, a 60 cal, and a 50 cal. So,
Hmm.
the 50 cal was the one I like. The bullets are that big, Nate.
Yeah.
Nate, the bullets are that big. They're nice. But yeah,
I mean,
but
you
no, I
need
took
something like
lessons
that,
too.
come on. That's
No.
taking down an armored tank or something,
Oh,
Wow.
I had flames coming out of an armored personnel carrier.
Hmm.
Oh, it gives you a rush. But I tell you what, I hate to clean it.
Yeah.
But no, they should sign up and take a course from a professional. And like with me and my wife, we did it. And I wouldn't teach my wife how to shoot. I have
Mm.
people ask me to teach them how to shoot. I don't do it because they need to go to a professional. And after they do that, then I show them. Because,
Okay.
I don't, I might miss some of the stuff because I'm used to doing it my way. But
Mhm.
like I said, you should go to a professional and learn, and you need to go
Sure.
practice. See, most people get a handgun and they have it and never take a lesson. And I've seen this before when I was at the range. A guy I wish I had my weapon right here. I should have bought one, but he had the thing. I'm standing right here, right where the speaker thing is. He had the gun pointed at me trying to load it.
Woo.
Yeah. And
Oh,
we
my
told it's some people, they need to be trained because you don't you treat a training weapon like you train a teacher use a real weapon. When I use my training weapons, it's the same principle. You never pointed at anybody. Except when we're training, it's cleared and everything. But when you're walking around, you never point that weapon at anybody. And most
Well,
people will get a go ahead.
I was gonna say, I gotta ask you then, what is your take on what happened on that set with Alex Baldwin, where the gun was loaded and it wasn't supposed to be, and the life
Exactly.
was taken? What's your take on who was? I mean, I know you don't know,
Well,
everything that
put it
happened.
this way: whoever's in charge of the weapon was responsible for that.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. If the armor comes in and it has weapons and bullets, that's their responsibility to make sure. When I'm out doing seminars, Nate, when I have my weapons, I keep an eye on my weapons. And I make sure they're clear before anybody get them. I don't leave my weapons sit on the other side of the building, then go get them and hand it to somebody because somebody can stick something in there and somebody can get hurt.
Yeah. That's
So
right.
whoever is in charge, who brought the weapons, who brought the ammo, the person that has the weapon is in charge. There's no way around it.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. It's
Now,
gonna be fascinating to see how that all shakes out. What happened, who's gonna be held responsible, the whole yard.
Yeah. Well, see, Alec, I mean, for his defense, he's an actor. That's not his job. I mean, but you think about it, if you know about weapons, you make sure it's cleared or whatever before you get it. See, that's the first thing. But if he doesn't know about weapons, how do you expect him to do it? Because if I hand you a weapon and I'm the one in charge, you take my word that it's right.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So in his part, you could say, well, he should have cleared it. But normally when you're on the set, nobody does it. Except when I did a movie, we made sure it was clear because me and my buddy both were military, ex-military. So we know about weapons. So with nobody, I wasn't gonna have a shotgun pointed at me and something was in it.
No,
You know what I mean? Because I wouldn't be here talking.
there you go. That's right.
So,
That's right.
it just just got to have some common sense with weapons. That's all it is. It's just like when you get in the car, you put your seatbelt on. It's a no-brainer.
Common sense.
Yeah.
So do you have your own, you do it, well, no, you already answered that because your dojo is in your house and you're not.
Well, I do have a place, but I don't use it. No, I have a place that a studio, but I haven't been there because I don't want to get sick. And, a friend of mine let me, has a place for me to go. It's a big training room, but
Okay.
I just won't go because you don't know who has COVID. And it's a big deal now about wearing a mask or getting the shot. I mean, good grief. You put clothes, you put a coat on when it's cold outside. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just, it's so, well, I don't like talking about political stuff, but the bottom line is, yes, I have a place I can go, but I'm not going there until this COVID is over with. So
Yeah.
I'm doing things online now to teach as much as I can. And if it gets to the point where I get into teaching people how to do weapons, then I have to get somebody that I know that had got their shot and is wearing a mask. And I have a couple
Okay.
of people, but to me, until I get that clientele, I'm not worried about
And I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
it.
And I will tell you, man, like I said, you've been at this for a long time. You've seen people come in and go, I'm sure,
Mhm.
and that's the other thing. You have to stay motivated. I know that there are times, even going to the gym, you just sort of don't want to go. But if you don't stay up on top of this, no matter what you learned 10, 15 years ago, it's not going to help you. If you just let your body go, you stop being sharp in terms of, your skills and all that kind of stuff. So how do you stay motivated, and how do you keep your skills at a level where they should be?
Nate, I'm blessed. God has blessed me. I
All right,
sit here and watch TV all day.
I hear
But you
you.
know what? I have my training dummies. If we do something else one day, I'll show you my gym. I have
Okay.
dummies set up. Well, maybe I can show you. I can show you right on here if you can see it. But I have my own dummy set up, heavy bags. I had 2 heavy bags up. I took a 100-pound bag down. I got a 65-pound bag up, and I got a
Mhm.
90-pound dummy sitting there waiting on me to beat on it anytime I feel like it. And the dummy
Mhm.
doesn't complain.
Mm.
And then I have my weights and everything else. So I train on that, and I'm gonna show you as soon as I get to it here.
Okay. Mhm.
And okay, here it is. See if you can see that.
Oh yeah, I see them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ah,
and
like
that's
little
what I
mannequins.
use.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Now the black one on the left, that weighs 90 pounds.
Wow.
When it came, I was expecting the orange one to be there, the one in the middle. Now I thought
Yes.
that was gonna be there. When I opened up the box, it scared me. I thought it was a body in it. So
Yeah.
I had to, but these things are nice because it gives me the chance to practice on what I need to do on the kicks. And like I said, the most of the time it's just going over techniques. And basically it's not the high kicking what you see in the movies. That's martial arts. That's taekwondo and all these different styles of kicking. In the
Exactly.
street, yeah, in the street, you're not kicking no higher than the groin area. And when you get into a close quarter combat, well, I'm going to be kicking way up here. If I kick
Mhm.
low, if I chop the tree down, you don't start chopping the tree down at the top. You start at the
Yeah.
bottom. So if
That's
you
right.
take away the legs, you know, the things start getting a little wobbly.
Yeah.
So that's what I do, man. I practice on the basic stuff that works all the time, and you don't have to be in top shape to do it. Even though
Okay.
I try to keep myself in pretty good shape because I'm gonna get me some ice cream tonight.
Boy, I used to love ice cream. I can't do it anymore. Let me
Oh
ask you a quick
man.
question. What is your take on MMA? I love boxing. I've been watching
Mhm.
boxing all my life. Love it. Then along comes MMA, and I'm thinking, okay, And sometimes I'm kind of into it a little bit. Then other times I'm thinking, man, this is just too brutal. This is too,
Oh, but it's the real deal. If
it's
guys got to train, it ain't. I tell you what, Nate, I was going to do that years ago. Get into MMA, and
Mhm.
everybody was teach when I used to teach up at the Harrisburg Institute of Taekwondo years ago,
Okay.
back in the '90s. When I went, yeah, back in the '90s, and the guy says, "Some of them," he says, and I think at the time I was like a 3rd-degree black belt. I think at the time he said you'd be good at this here because I used to teach,
Yeah.
grappling and stuff, and the stuff I did, like when I trained the military stuff. And he said you'd be good. So somebody bought me a videotape of it. That's when we had the VCR tapes.
Oh yeah.
I put that VCR tape in and looked at. Oh no, I'm not going out there, man. You got to be. I drove tractor trailers for a living. I wasn't in that kind of shape. I got long arms, long fingers. They were
Yeah.
bending and oh no,
Yeah,
no, no,
man.
no.
Oh
You
yeah.
you
Yeah.
got to be tough.
Gotta be tough. No
Yeah,
question about it.
that's a whole different. It's almost like being a Navy SEAL or a Green Beret or
Mhm.
one of them guys. I mean, you got to be tough. And you know what? That wasn't my
Mhm.
forte. I had to make a living.
All right. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, I really appreciate you, like I said, coming on. And one of the things I hope people will take away from this conversation, self-protection is important. You
Mhm.
can pretty much start at any age. Is that
Any
right?
age. You're
Any
never
age.
too old to get robbed. You're never too
Mhm.
old to learn.
There you go. I like
Yep.
it. Never too old to get robbed or to learn.
Yep.
Amen to that. So, we just want to encourage people to be more, you know, vigilant,
Yes.
look around the environment and don't
Yes.
just tune out because there's somebody zeroing in on you. And I don't want
Yes.
anybody to be paranoid now, but the truth is the truth.
Yes.
There's way too much going on. I like that sign back there, man. I see
That's
it.
why I put up so if people want to get in contact with me, they
Yeah,
can
yeah.
just,
Oh,
there's all
okay.
the
Oh, that's
information.
thank you. So read that number off for us to make sure we're seeing it.
Okay, the telephone number is 717-657-8397. The
Mhm.
email address is top flight, TOPFLIGHT, combative, COMBATIVES at gmail.com.
Okay.
And the
But you know
website
what?
is
You have a nice big picture of it, so I'm sure people can see that. I can,
good.
and
Okay.
hopefully people will contact and reach out to you. Now you're not doing, and you're not having a lot of contact with people because of the virus. So what do? You do some work over Zoom or online?
Over Zoom. Now, like we talked before about it, churches and stuff. If they want
Mhm.
something, as long as people follow the guidelines, I have no problem. But if somebody sneeze, I'll be running out the door. You think I'm the Flash? But but as long as they keep it
Yeah,
safe, I can do something. But most
yeah,
people that I found out, they don't want to wear a mask. They don't want to get their
yeah. A
shot.
lot of them don't, and some of the masks can be very uncomfortable to wear. But we
Well,
have to wear them.
I wear N95. I've been wearing
All
it
right.
since this mess started, and I'm gonna be
Mhm.
wearing it for the next 2 or 3 years. Because when I was in the military, I got gassed. Ain't nobody complained about putting on a mask when they gassed us. You know what I mean? You hit that tear gas.
Yes.
I had my
Mhm.
mask on. I wasn't. Oh, I'm not wearing a mask.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, but no. But if they want to get in contact, we can see. We can work out something. Just like I told you before about the having cameras. There's always you can find them online. They got more cameras now that you can find something to fit your budget. And the
That's
main
right.
thing is be safe at your home. Make sure you keep a
Mhm.
light on, keep your bushes cut down low, and keep your
Mhm.
doors locked on the car. And if somebody runs into the back of your car,
Mhm.
to get a dash cam. That's very important too. You know what a dash cam is?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Get one of
Mhm.
those too, front and back. That way you can
Yes.
videotape people.
No, that's a very good point. Because when you're preoccupied trying to get into your car, people can easily sneak up on you, especially if
Yeah,
it's a big lot like a Walmart or someplace like that. You just don't even see it coming. You may see them coming, but you just assume they're on their way into Walmart or whatever store it might be.
the buddy
But
system.
they're not. They're on the way to you. you
Yeah,
know.
but always go with a partner. Get your husband off the couch. Go with a buddy system. Park up near the
Mhm.
front, up under the lights. Be
There you
safe.
go.
That's the only thing. Just using common sense. And,
That's right. Amen to that.
it's all
Common
good.
sense, brother.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. Well, look, man, I want to thank you again, and we're going to, do this again one day, I'm sure, down the line. And I
Okay.
appreciate you coming on and talking about it. I always find martial arts to be fascinating, and also needed and necessary sometimes. It all depends on the environment, like you said. It all depends
Yes.
on the situation. But more than anything, it gives you peace of mind. Is
Yes, it
that right?
does. Oh, yeah, it
Okay.
does. Because you don't have that fear. You know what you can do. See, that's the difference. If you don't know what to do, you're like a deer in the headlights. But when you know
Yeah.
what to do, it takes some of that away from you because you know if a person comes and boom, grabs you,
Yeah.
you know where to hit a pressure point, and that'd be a come to Jesus moment for that person.
Come to Jesus. Man, I really appreciate you, Fred. And I'm just going to say to the viewing audience that we're going to shift gears here in a second, and we're going to be talking about fatherhood programs and, talk about what makes an effective fatherhood program. I did a training today for the, what is the name of the organization? Anyhow, it's that midwinter, big conference that they do every year. I'm going to call the name. But they asked me if I'd be one of the trainers, and they asked me if I would do building and sustaining father engagement, something that I do for University of Pittsburgh's Child Welfare Resource Center. I've been doing it for years. Plus, I ran a fatherhood program, for years. And right now, Derek James is doing an excellent job with his organization, doing fatherhood. And so I want to talk about what makes an effective fatherhood program and why are they needed. And so Brother Chris has been gracious enough to pull up a couple of videos, and I will be, talking about some of the factors that we, those of us who've been in the field for a while, know what is needed in order to have a good program. You can have a program, people show up. The question is, can we sustain them? Will they continue to come? And then will the information that you give them resonate and become part of their lifestyle? Because it's one thing to learn something, but not use it. We had it happen in a lot of different, venues. People coming to our chaplaincy program with the notion that they're going to volunteer in the hospitals. And, the internship and all that we do, great. But then as soon as they are done with the program, got the certificate, you don't see them again. It's like you did all that to become certified, as a chaplain, and then you don't even volunteer or get involved, in any way, shape, or form. So the question becomes, why were you there? What was that? What was the point? What was the point? So we're going to explore all of that in terms of what an effective fatherhood program is, why you should have one in your community, no matter what community that it is, and what we hope the end results will be for families in general, to get more fathers to go back home and to be in the lives of their children. That's what that's all about. Again, thank you, brother. And, best to your family, man. I hope to see you down the line. Okay.
Okay. God bless you and your family too, man. Appreciate
God bless you, brother. Thank you now. All right. So that was a very good interview. The brother's been doing it for years. He knows his stuff. He really does. What a great ambassador for the martial arts and for our community. So thanks again to Brother Fred Waters. I'm going to turn to Brother Chris Thomas now. And Brother Chris, I appreciate you, man.
Likewise, there, Dr. Nate.
Brother Fred did a nice job. He did a real nice job. And what I like about Fred is that he's always the same. No matter when you interview that brother meeting, always the same. Good personality. Yeah.
And it's some advice and skills that many times we take for granted. It's one of those things you rather have and not need than need and not have.
That's right. That's right. Yes, indeed. And in today's world, man, you never know when it's coming at you.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
I mean, just crazy stuff. Absolutely. So, but anyhow, but thanks again. I had a wonderful training today, and let me get my information out here because I don't want to sit there and keep talking about it without really talking about it in a proper way. I did a 3-hour training. I usually do 6 hours for the University of Pittsburgh's Child Welfare Resource Center. This is the curriculum that we use, building sustaining father engagement. And it's a wonderful course. But anyhow, I was asked to come on and chop it down to 3 hours. And so we went, looked at a lot of stuff here. So I want to talk a little bit about what is an effective fatherhood program and why it's important. But also I want to the people, the viewing audiences, to see in action what a fatherhood program looks like.
Yes, sir.
Because a lot of, Pennsylvania is big. I don't know how many counties we have, but we have a whole bunch of counties. But not all the counties within even our state, Pennsylvania, have fatherhood programs. And I asked today, we had 127 people in the group. And so I asked them, I said, well, how many of you have? And very few people raised their hand. I was connected to one dynamic program out around Pittsburgh. I forget the exact county, but anyhow, right next to Pittsburgh. And so the brother did call me. He's an apostle, and he called me, and he actually works for UPMC. Well, he works through UPMC. He works for an agency, but UPMC has picked up his fatherhood program. And it was fascinating, man. We talked for a long time. And I appreciate one of the students in the class today who made the connection. He's a pastor out there, pretty large church in Pittsburgh himself. And so the question is, is this a really important issue? And yeah, it is, because we have a lot of father absent homes,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I don't know, brother Chris, what we're going to do, man, to get more men to, they say it's always easier to what is this? Easier to, I'll say it this way, it's easier to make a baby than to be a father, know.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And that's one of our slides. The slide actually says it's easier to become a father than it is to actually be a father.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, and too many men are hooking up with these ladies for maybe a month or a night. And then next thing you know, they produce a child, and that is now a lifetime, if not at least 18 years commitment, you know, that some of them aren't ready for.
And you know, I heard you once use that African statement that see a man, be a man. And it's so unfortunate that many times we have heard about, you know, manhood and what true manhood is, but we haven't seen it demonstrated or walked out in front of us. So I think if a lot more of us would see more real men, I'm talking about fathers that are present, that are good husbands, not just in public. It's easy to be a good husband in public. Reverend Gadsden, I'm sure you know that. But you know, your wife knows the real you, your neighbors know the real you, your sons and daughters know the real you today. And this isn't to throw stones, and that's why programs like this is needed, Dr. Gadsden.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's sad when every county has fathers, but not every county has a fatherhood program where fathers can learn how to really be fathers. That's amazing.
Right. That's right. They don't. And usually if there is a program in the county, maybe just one, you know. And Philadelphia has a couple of good ones down there, but you know, as big as Philadelphia is, they need more than a couple, right? They need more than a few. And the same thing, even here in Dauphin County, I'll mention again that I know we have a few programs out there, you know, through Life Esteem. We've had it through the United Way, and also through the Community Action Commission. And now Derek James is still, you know, keeping it going. In fact, he had on Facebook just this past Saturday, I think it was, they had a big graduation. And it was, I mean, it was well represented. You know, they use 24/7 dads, which is a nationwide curriculum. And the brother that I talked to today out in Pittsburgh, they use 24/7 dads also. So it's something that you can go to the Fatherhood Initiative, look up their, you know, information, and they have their program is called 24/7 dads, and it's a 12-week program. And they have, I think, 4 different areas that they concentrate in. So every third class is like a quarter. And so they have something, you know, designed for that. In our programs, we have a curriculum. Our program is called the Fatherhood Academy. And it was also based on 12 weeks. And it was developed through Shippensburg University's graduate program in social work. And so the people, our intern, who was a Hispanic sister, Luna, I think was her last name, but anyhow, I'll think of it. But she did a fantastic job of pulling it all together and then working with me to, you know, visualize what it should look like. And then we ran that program for years. So anyhow, it's a good thing to have. It's needed and necessary. We have way too many men who are still incarcerated, way too many men who are still, you know, not connected to their children or families in a real way. So let's do something about it. So I'm going to ask you, Brother Chris, if you don't mind pulling up the first video. Sure. And then we'll come back and dissect that and talk about some elements of a good program.
That's good. This first outreach, Dr. Gadsden, is from Cincinnati, and I believe it's called the Talbert House, and they have a website. But let's look into the content, then we can talk about it after the fact.
Fantastic. Thank you, brother.
Fatherhood Project is a program that is designed to assist fathers in overcoming any barriers in their lives that's preventing them from being the father that they want to be to their children. Core components of the program consist of case management services. Those services typically happen for 6 months on average. We also have components that include legal services. Legal services is designed to assist fathers in overcoming any barriers that they may be having around child support, custody, visitation. What we found is these things are important because there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to family law related issues. So as a community, we want to make sure that we're educating all of our fathers about their rights and responsibilities when it comes to being a nurturing fathers. We also provide enrichment activities that include typically educational in nature. So, you know, taking them to the museum center. For us, it's an opportunity for us to see how fathers engage in safe play for their children. For the fathers, it's an opportunity for them to do activities with their children that maybe they can't afford. And, you know, the Fatherhood Project really enjoys being able to provide those services to each and every father that we work with. A lot of our fathers, we find, don't, when they enroll into the program, do not have employment. And so for us, it's an opportunity to provide job readiness services to them, including soft skills, you know, how to maintain a job, how to work with, you know, your boss, how to communicate with your peers, and then obviously job placement as well. And so for us, we're really trying to work with fathers on having careers, not just a job. Typically when men engage us, they're engaging us around a specific need that they may have coming in the door. So that can be, access to their child, that can be just needing basic information. And so what we do is we typically work with that father to see what the array of issues are. And so as fathers are engaging us and coming into the program, although we're meeting that specific need that they identify, we're also meeting an array of needs. And so the great thing about the Fatherhood Project is all the services that we provide. Once you come into the Fatherhood Project, it opens up many doors, breaking down those barriers, breaking down those walls so they can truly be the best father and co-parenting partner that they could be to their children. This is why the array of services are so important, because again, it helps move that father towards being the best father he can be and provide that financial and emotional support that is critical to the growth and development of each and every child that we serve.
So co-parenting services are designed to help parents who are no longer together to function in a way that is in the best interest of their children and actually meets their children's developmental needs. Typically, the child is left lacking or wanting one or both parents. There's a range of things that we can help the parents come to agreement on that decrease stress, decrease conflict, so that that child can receive the best of both parents, even though they're not together. I would think some of the top tier results or outcomes that we achieve are helping parents communicate better, are helping parents manage conflict better, are helping parents see each other in a better light, helping remind parents that the child is the primary focus. And in the co-parenting coaching, we keep that child central to what we do.
One of the new features to the Fatherhood Project is the New Beginnings for New Fathers program. It's more proactive, meaning we know kind of what those barriers are when the child is 10, 15, 16 years of age. But we're getting the parents and we're getting the child when they're young. And so we're able to provide prevention services around safe sleep, spacing, domestic violence, things that are critical to relationships. We're also able to work with the fathers and the mothers to make sure that no matter where the relationship may land, they're able to always communicate at a high level and role model healthy relationships for their children.
To the Fatherhood Project, thank you very much for helping me become the best dad that I can be.
Oh, you're doing a good job so far.
So far. Okay, thanks. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
What I truly think about you is that I don't think I could have gotten any luckier in this world.
It really means a lot to me when I see fathers come in need, in despair, lacking information, lacking skills, lacking direction, but having a heart to be a good dad and to be able to provide the resources, ideas, and strategies and support to help them achieve their heart's goal, which is to be a really good dad.
For me, I've dedicated my life to fatherhood because I've always had a great father and a great role model. And I think, growing up, in the West End, on the west side of town, all my friends, some of them didn't have a father, and I saw how that hurt them. And, and I would just have the opportunity to go home and be loved and nurtured by, my father. And what I've learned through this journey is that all men want to be there. All men want to be there. And, typically it's this one aspect or this one thing that they just need help with. And if I and my team and Calvin and, others can really just help them, get that need met so that they can be the best father that they can be to their children, just think of what that does for our community.
That's a good piece there, Brother Chris. Good piece. Fatherhood Project out in Ohio. And I like all the things that they touched on, and that they have like a holistic approach, I noticed also. They're addressing all aspects of a father's experience, from employment, then the reunification of the family. Oftentimes when that structure is hurt or divided. Just everything that I think a fatherhood program needs to touch on. It seems like that's what they're doing. So that's a good thing. We do have a good, effective fatherhood programs here in the central Pennsylvania area, and I do want you to know that through Life Esteem, we do offer the Fatherhood Academy, and we've sort of pulled back just a little bit for the last couple months here. It kind of slowed down, and we're going to reinstitute it and get it moving again. We do have, as one of the strengths of our program is that we have parenting programs as well, and they're evidence-based programs that we offer free, and anybody can come out. So our natural progression, we think, is having the Fatherhood Academy, where the men can talk men stuff and really, zero in on what it means to be a man. Like Brother Chris was saying before, see a man, be a man. What does that, what does that look like? We have a lot of great resources, from videos to all kinds of handouts and things that I've been able to collect over the years. A ton of stuff. I can tell you, we have a veritable library that was given to us by the Derricksons, Paul and Barbara Derrickson. And then also, we connected with one of 3 programs, and you can actually take all 3 of them. One is called Strong African American Families. It's an evidence-based program that was created out of the University of Georgia. And we were trained. We had about 15 to 20 people here in Harrisburg through Life Esteem trained to run this curriculum. And we've had at least 3 or 4 very successful programs. And then we also have Celebrating Families, which is 16 sessions. And then we do it, over 8 weeks. And then we have Strengthening Families, which is 14 sessions we do over 7 weeks. So, we look for our guys to go through the Fatherhood Academy, and then with their family, come and take one of these family programs and, really strengthen their family, if you will. So that's what that's all about. That's a good video though, Brother Chris. Appreciate you finding that, man.
Dr. Nate, I was actually took some good notes off of that. But one thing I caught at the end, and I just wanted to share just a little bit of the components that made a good fatherhood program. But what he said at the end was very key. He said all fathers want to be there, but not all fathers want to put in the work to be that good model father.
Absolutely.
I don't think you talk to any dad to say, I just want to be a bad, horrible dad. I want to be a bad, horrible husband. But who's willing to sacrifice? Who's willing to apply the discipline that it's going to take to be that good man, to be that good father?
I just met with a good brother that I'm working with in the capacity as a mentor and all that. And so we had breakfast together, and we, for the first time, really talked about his father. And man, he just unloaded. I mean, he hates his father in a sense. He admires some of the strengths that his father has, but he said the way his father raised him, and then what he did to his mother. He said, I just can't forgive him, and this is a guy who's trying to be a good Christian man. He said, and I was struggling with this thing, man. He said, because, my dad did some damage that I'll take to my grave, I'm sure. He said, and no matter what he does, it just seems like I just get deeper and deeper in my anger. And then also there was a book written, real small little pamphlet. I have it here in one of my little books back there, called Daddy, I Hate You, by Ulysses Slaughter out of Philadelphia. And he talks about how his dad killed his mother, shot her to death, and how he hated his dad all the years of his life. And so he finally wrote this little book that was it's basically a letter to his father, and he gave it to his father. And he hadn't seen his father in years. Father had been in prison. When his father got out, he gave it to his father. And then the father, who first said he was afraid, he didn't know what son was going to do, he asked him, can I write the foreword to the book? And so he wrote a foreword to the book, and then they started going around, different universities talking about the anger that a son can have to his father, and the damage that a father can do to the family. And so it was a big hit, because they were both raw and honest, And so Jason Moffett, who's here in Harrisburg, he has a poem called Suburban Ghetto Blues. And the poem was real cool. But when you listen to the backstory as to why he wrote that poem, it was about a father who moved his family from inner city, where they were struggling, and was able to move out to the suburbs of Harrisburg and looked like they were going to have a better life. He said, and it went downhill. He said, why? He said, because his dad decided to pursue a business and basically just kind of divorced himself from the family. He was at the home, but he wasn't, And so he said, we went from inner city, where it looked like we were struggling, to the suburbs, where it looked like we were really doing well. He said, but that's when we really struggled. We stopped really. He said, because the father had pretty much separated himself from the family. He said, so he calls the book, is a poem, Suburban Ghetto Blues.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, that's the slick. I mean, that's so well, but it's a real story. That's the sad reality about it.
Yes, sir.
So everything he's telling you in that poem is real. It really happened. You're like, oh, okay,
Oh my.
that's a different story. You know. So a lot of men. I mean, we all had these stories, and I could go on and on and on. So when we had our program, we actually at one point we met with at the neighborhood center, United Methodist Neighborhood Center, very successful there. We also met through Hamilton Health Center. They had their own program, and they asked me to help, run it. Darius Stafford was the director, and she was very good. But she said, "I'd like to get some men." So she asked me and another brother to step in, which we did. And then I ran the program. They asked me after she left to just kind of run it. So we ran it for a while. Very successful. But the problem with Hamilton Health Center is they wanted the men who were accessing their services for the program to be for them. The men who were coming, I had 15, 20 men, 25 men literally at one time. But they were just men who said, I want to come and be a part of this program. And they were coming from the, what is it, Sienna? Not Sienna House. I forget the name of the house, but I'm up off of 18th and State. They would bring me a ton of men and then, some other folks too. But the problem was, again, they wanted the men to be having been patients of the Hamilton Health Center, and that became problematic. I said, just open it up because the men might decide, what, I might use Hamilton Health Center next time because, but it's another whole story. Yeah, but a good, effective program, you have to have someone that is either considered to be an anchor because it's going to, the attendance and everything else is going to go up and down. But if you got that one person or persons that are not going to, they're going to be there no matter what, the program can sustain itself. It's sort of like the Chris Thomas dictate. You may be a one-man army, but you're a powerful army, brother, because you don't ever stop. You keep it going. And that's the key. If you stopped right now, what would happen to the station?
What would happen to my family? What would happen to my wife? What would happen to my daughter?
There you go. Yeah, this is your livelihood. This is what you do. But you do it well. You're committed to it. So that's what we need in our community around fathers. We need people who are committed. It's not just something that you just do. No, this is serious work. I'm serious, man. You've given voice to so many people in this community. Think about that. We all wanted to do something with, hey, Wink 104 and all those guys, they gave up on us. Let's be honest about it. They shut down. You came along, you hanging there. You had to move different places. You did it. It was not easy, but you did it. That's what we need in our communities when it comes down to family structures. We need people that are committed and that are going to make these things happen no matter what. But you don't always see that.
And not to interrupt you there, Dr. J. That takes oftentimes a strength that's greater than we are.
Amen. It does.
And I think that's times where, unfortunately, many of us fall short. Because if it's up to me with just Chris Power to do what God has enabled me alone to do, I'm going to fall short. I'm going to become frustrated. I'm going to get burned out somewhere or at some point. And I mean, we all break down, but resilience is the key. And the power that's greater than we are ends up being the glue and the resilience that we need to stay in the race, to stay in the game.
Amen. Amen. That is so true. That is so true. We were at the movies, the Regal Theater, my wife and I, and there's a gentleman there. He's, definitely retired, but he was there taking tickets and stuff. And he never really said much. He'd always speak, hey, how you doing, whatever. And then one day he said, did I wake up one morning and see you guys on TV? I said, yeah. He said, oh, okay. And he just started talking, and then he just started, And so anyhow, here, this guy, I started noticing people coming, hey, Bob, hey, what? I mean, this guy had done a number of things in this community, now he was older and he needed, I guess, some income there, but he was also getting him out amongst the people, So I didn't know who I was talking to, but this guy, he's a guy of substance, you know what I mean? And so he said that, but he looked at us and he said, you guys have been on for a pretty long time. I said, yeah, he said, I mean, I remember seeing the program before, but I didn't know you didn't. He said, but one day it hit me that, hey, that's the same couple that comes into the movies all the time. So he said, can I ask you a question? He said, have you ever gotten sick? And we said, no. He said, so your program, I mean, you've been blessed, but you've been on there. And I thought, man, you just take things for granted.
Sure.
Yeah, we've done that program for years, And I think I may have missed one program out of the entire 28 to 30 years we've been doing this program, just once. And that wasn't because of sickness or illness, that's because of schedule.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, my wife the same way. And we looked at each other and said, sometimes you forget to thank God for,
Wow.
look at God. I mean, wow. It didn't have to be that way, but it was,
Yes, sir.
Sheesh, powerful stuff.
That devil.
Hmm?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, sir.
No, I want you to go.
I was going to say that devil's no dumb devil. And a lot of what we're experiencing and see happening in our society today was actually by his design, not by God's design, but by his design. If I can remove the high priest, which should be the man who should take the spiritual lead, not just the physical lead, as far as being the breadwinner and the disciplinarian. If I could make the high priest not be the high priest, and not see a man to learn how to be a man, then I won't have a successful marriage. If I don't have a successful marriage, I won't have a successful family. If I don't have a successful family, I won't have a successful community. If I won't have a successful community, here goes the world that we are presently experiencing. So it's unfortunate. That devil, he's no dumb devil. He knows what he's doing and he's implementing his plan. But we have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And somewhere we got to want to be that man. We got to want to be that high priest, not just the breadwinner. And not just that one that's ruling by an iron fist. Well, it's easy to rule. And I'm sorry, Dr. Gadsden.
No, I'm listening to you, brother. I appreciate you. Go ahead.
It's easy to rule with an iron fist, but that's not what a real family is all about. Real family is about walking in love, and honoring one another, preferring one another above yourself. And we live in this me-centered generation where it's all about me. And if I'm unhappy, I'm making everyone else and everything around me unhappy as well. And that's just an unfortunate state of our society today, sir.
It's an unfortunate state, yeah. And not only that, that could be a learned response.
Yes, sir.
One of the questions that we have, in fact, let me see if I can pull it up real quick, because this is one of the exercises we do. And I did this morning with this group. And it's, I can probably just quote it myself, but let me see if I can find it real quick. Because what it essentially asks you to do is think about your father, let me find it. And what would your father's motto be, just based on what he said to you, the way he lived his life? Here it goes. So this is a piece that says self-awareness and work with fathers, right?
Yes, sir.
It says all of us have values, ethics, ideals, and principles that form the framework for our lives. The following 7 questions will help you sort through these values in the context of your relationship with fathers. Question number 1. A motto is a creed that summarizes our approach to life. It often has to do with work, ethics, values about life, belief systems, or even a favorite saying. It could be positive or negative. If your father had a motto, what would it be? If your father had a motto, what would it be? And it's amazing. Now, we always tell people at the beginning, you don't have to answer these questions, because we ask them to write it all down. So and then we started processing. There are people that start this process, they end up in tears, or they'll have a hard time finishing it, or they may actually write it out, but they don't want to share it with anybody because it's like,
Yes, sir.
I can't share this here. And then others, man, they have great memories of their father and great relationship, and so they gladly want to share, that kind of thing. But it's a powerful question, man. What would your father's motto be? And that's a tough thing to ask somebody whose father was never there, was always absent.
That's what I was about to say and add on to what you just shared. What happens when the dynamic is changed and the father has been absentee, or the father has just been a donor, for lack of a better word, and not a physical source of strength and inspiration in the home. Because now, if you would have asked me what was my father's motto, I wouldn't have had an answer to that, because my father passed away before I was born.
Oh my God.
And I think another one of the strategies, I'll give it right back to you, of the devil, of the God of this world, is the cause of bitterness, of resentment, and unforgiveness that will be perpetuated throughout the generations, because I've never been whole, I've never been healed, I've never forgiven, I've never processed the hurt and the pain that I've experienced. So all I know is hurt and pain, so that's all I can give in return.
Isn't that something? Man, oh man. Boy, you just summed up a whole lot of men who've come through by way of the Fatherhood Academy, anyhow, who had that kind of mindset. You know, the second question here asks, other than your biological father, who were important men in your life when you were growing up? What was your relationship with them like? So, you know, we may not, I didn't have a father that was present. I had a father and I knew of him.
Yes, sir.
And I met him a number of times, not that many times. And then it wasn't until I was like maybe 42 or whatever, did we actually have a conversation. You know, when I was a little kid, he called up, boy, how you doing? Blah, blah, that kind of thing. There was no real conversation though. I'd be fine, you know, whatever. But now I'm a grown man and it's
Yes,
like,
sir.
I got questions, you know.
But
So
yes,
we talked, you know, go ahead. Mhm.
no, I
Yeah.
was listening. Interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I'm just saying, you know, so actually there were important men in my life, but it wasn't necessarily my father. So the question
Wow,
becomes, well, who were those important men and what were
wow.
they like? And how did I see them and how did we, you know? And so yeah, that's a powerful question, you know?
That's key. That's key as well. Role models are very instrumental and very important. And if I
Absolutely.
think of the role models that I've had in times past in the absence of my father, the ratio is uneven for bad role models versus good and godly role models. So that
Amen.
changes the dynamic as well. I had role
It
models,
does.
but they were giving
Mhm.
me the wrong definition, and for a good percentage of my
Mhm.
life, I was trying to live up to the wrong expectation of what it really means to really be a true man, to be a true godly man in the spiritual.
Amen. Amen. You know, it's so funny when I think back to the men in my family that I looked up to, and I mean, I really admired my uncles, for example, but none of them were churchy
Wow.
or people that really would. I mean, I would think that they would all say, "Oh, I believe in God," you know, but
Yes.
they weren't people who really attended church on the regular, you know, that kind of thing. And so, you know, it always made me kind of think, you know, you look at them and you admire them, you like what they do and that kind of stuff, but you never saw them as people who were followers,
My,
disciples, builders in the church, you know.
oh,
So, okay. Were they men in and out of prison? No. Were they people that hurt people? No. Did they have families? Yeah. But they were really worldly, you know, the drinking and this kind
yes,
of
sir.
thing. And, you
Yes, sir.
know, but good men, you know. But was that enough? You know, was that
My,
enough? Well, it
my,
was
my
it
mind.
was interesting. Yeah.
I mean, that's a good foundation. If I could have picked a perfect dad, I don't think I would have picked a dad that always did everything 100% right.
Oh no, no, no.
You know, I mean, I would have liked to been able to been educated on both sides of the fence, to be
No
street smart,
question.
but also to be
Mhm.
God fearing.
Yeah, I
That's
would want a dad who understood what
that's
mess up looked like. You
sure.
know,
That's good.
fall down looked like. You know,
And
so he
how to be
could.
resilient after the fact.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Because you know, I've actually sat with men who had fathers, and one in particular, I won't mention the name here, but he talked about how his father was a good, godly man in a sense. He said, but man, he was so unbending and nasty. He said, and I'll never forget, I was about 13 or 14 years of age. He said, and my dad was still, you know, whoop on me, you know, this and he said, and I just had enough. I remember thinking, this isn't right. You know, he said, and so something had happened. And he said, well, wait till your mom get home. Wait till your dad get home. That's what mom said. And
Sure.
so dad walked in and he said, he remembers thinking to himself, no, no more. And so he said, I stood up. He said, I'm not going to disrespect my dad. He said, but I'm going to let my dad know you don't scare me no more. He said, and my dad literally went back to hit me. He said, and because I stood there without flinching or anything, so before I'd be like, oh no, he said, and I just looked at him. He said, my dad stepped back and said, well, you better not hit me. He said, I'll never forget that. He said, my dad stepped back, you know. He said, he never hit me. He said, but he said, you better not hit me. And he just said, I didn't say a word. I just walked up the steps. He said, and
Sure.
from that day on, he never laid another hand on me. He said, but my dad knew I had to look at my face like, man, if you put your hands on me, you know, it's going to be on. And he said, but it was needed. He said, because he knew his dad was a good man, but he thought his dad didn't know how to relate to him other
Wow.
than to just pound on him.
Yes, sir.
And that's wrong, you know, that's just,
Wow.
yeah. So anyhow, but we talk about these things in the fatherhood program, and men don't always talk about these things.
No, sir.
Uh,
No, sir. No, sir.
I
Um,
got to tell you,
Go ahead.
real quick, Bishop Sullivan,
Yes,
Pastor
sir.
Sullivan, he came on my show with his mother once, and we were talking about fatherhood programs. And he mentioned how, his mother was the primary everything, that the father for him wasn't there. And, he just said it on TV, the whole bit. And so anyhow, it was really an excellent program, and he wasn't disrespectful at all. As far as he was talking fact. I was in a Chinese restaurant. I'll never forget it. And there's a guy who, he's a good man, and goes, he's really big in his church and all that kind of stuff. But he's looked at me and he said, I didn't appreciate that program at all. I mean, have a man come on there talking about your father like that. He said, I don't appreciate that. That's not even necessary. I said, two things. One, that's his story and his story to tell. He didn't have to tell it, but he told it. I said, and the other thing is, I know that he wasn't lying. Now, you may not like the fact that he talked about it. I said, but I know that because you grew up with that guy. He said, because he even told me that. I said, so that was your friend, but he didn't treat his family well. Right. I said, he abandoned his family. I said, now, if you don't like that, but ain't your story to tell. It's his story to tell. Oh, he got mad. He was like, well, I don't care. That ain't your story to tell, Yes, and then I'm wondering, what kind of dad are you? Okay. What you hiding? Well, why'd that upset you so much? And I don't think he's hiding anything. I'm just saying. But it made me think to you, brother, you coming a little bit hard with somebody else's story, And so that's the one thing we talk about in the father program. We don't let judgment and stuff. Yes, if you tell them a lie, that's one thing. But you come in there, you just tell them your story,
That's good. That's good. And that prepares you for real life, Dr. Gadsden. As you see a man that was resilient, that broke the curse, that broke the cycle of a lopsided household of just having a mother and not having a father, kind of just like me as well. But that prepares you for real life, because that's real life. Every home, every marriage, every family isn't going to be that picket fence, happily ever after. You got that Pop Cleaver and that Mom Cleaver type example. Sometimes it's like Good Times,
But even Good Times had a James Evans. He was a good man.
Hey, I wouldn't play around with James. You need someone kind of like James.
James went to work. James came home. James raised his, you know what I mean? He wasn't no millionaire, and he wasn't the brightest guy in the world. He was kind of, raw, but he was there.
He was there.
What a perfect man. One of my, one of my favorite movies of all time. I just watched it again this past weekend. A Raisin in the Sun.
Okay.
With Sidney Poitier and the mom was challenging him to be a man. You know what your father was like? The father died. We never saw the father. Yes, and they were waiting on that check to come in. And all this son could think about was, a get rich quick thing. He wanted to, and he lost the money, giving it to a guy who was a demon. And so the mom had put money down on the house in a all white neighborhood. And they were like, do you know what you just did? And that was a no-no back then,
Sure.
But anyhow, at one point, she looked at her son and she said, son, and she told him, here's $6,500. I want you to put this in the bank. And I want you to take $3,000 for yourself. You can do anything you want with it. And she said, you're not for yourself, but she said, you do it. She said, you be the man. You determine how this $3,500 should be used. And then the others you put in the bank for your sister's college. And so he takes it and gives it to the Willie, whoever Willie is. And Willie's supposed to take it to the racetrack and spread it around so they could get this license. And Willie never shows up. Another guy put a little bit of money in too. And so he's up there howling and screaming and crying and turns around and his mom standing there just looking at him. I'm talking about a powerful picture. But the thing is, at the end of the picture, he just came with the scheme to get this money back from the all white community. And his son was there, and his son was like 10 years old, whatever. And so the grandmom said, no, you stay right there with your father. And she said, go on and show your son what it looks like, what a man looks like.
Wow.
And he had to go through this. And so he had to stand there with the whole family looking at him. Sure. And he's getting ready to tell his white man, we want to take that money that you wanted to offer us to not come live in your neighborhood. And instead of doing that, he tells the white man, he says, no. He says, we're coming to live in that neighborhood. You tell those neighbors that, And so the mom says, she says, today my son became a man.
Oh,
that was
wow.
a powerful picture, man. And that little boy standing there looking at that, what's my dad going to do? Man, that thing brings tears to me every time I look at it. Good, powerful picture. Because you know what? Not all of us had an opportunity to actually see a man. I saw my uncles all cry when their father died. That was my grandfather.
Sure.
I'd never seen him cry before. I was like a little kid. When he died at Bethlehem Steel. And here I see my Uncle Dump, Uncle Elmer, Uncle Jack. And these are some big men, you know.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, this person came down to the car. We get ready to get out the car at Harrisburg Hospital. And they said, your dad died. And all those men, all those grown, big, tough men sat there and they just cried. I was like, whoa. That was, man, that impressed me, brother.
You know, crying or that type of expression as a form of
that for their father. Yeah, they held their father great. And I didn't know, you know, my granddad was silent. He was a quiet guy to me. And I was listening to my grandma. But they said, all the men said, oh no. They said, if anything went down, we went to my dad. You know, he was like a rock. You know, he took no mess. He brought his check home and gave every single check to Roosevelt Robinson. And then she did what she had to do for the house. And they gave him an award. We all had to dress up and go there. Bethlehem Steel, 35 years, never missed a day. Wow. They said never took off a vacation. They said he just worked himself to the bone and never complained about nothing. You know, they said he was just a rock, you know, and his name was Dennis Robinson. He was a man. And those men were always in awe of him. They were just like, you know, that guy, yeah, came out of Philadelphia. Philadelphia, yeah. Steel mill, man. So yeah, man, you know, that's the kind of stuff that we know there are men around here like that. That's why we had that awards program at the State Museum for a number of years and honored 10 men every year.
That's
and
good.
We want to get back to that again because last year the State Museum wasn't available to us. This year will be.
Yes.
And so we're going to have that honoring of these men again, you know.
Wow.
You had another video for us. I love that piece from Toledo, Ohio. So we'll see this next one and then we'll talk about what's coming up.
Let me see. The Better Man, the Black Fatherhood Project.com. So let's give this a shot. It's 10 minutes and 14 and we'll be back and we'll talk a little bit more.
Excellent. Fun. I'm looking forward to this. Okay.
I consider myself one lucky son, and from a long line of lucky sons. See, what I mean is, throughout the 200 years back, I can trace my paternal heritage. In each generation, there is a loving father present. It is remarkable and relatively rare that for 7 generations straight, the men of the Theory family developed strong, positive relationships with their children, despite the constant challenges Black families have faced throughout American history. First, there was my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Louis Theory, born in St. Landry Parish, Louisiana in 1770. The son of a slave woman and an unknown man, he married and had 13 children, one of whom was Alexander Theory, who had Felix Theory, who had Eloy Theory, who moved to Galesburg, Illinois from Louisiana and had Ollie Theory Sr., who had my grandfather, Ollie Theory Jr., who had my father, Ollie Theory III, who in partnership with my mother Trudy created me, Jordan, and then my little brother, Nick. That's me and my pops. As a kid, I knew I was lucky because of the active relationship I had with my dad. For us, it was always basketball. Through playing hoop, my dad taught me the values of hard work, integrity, generosity, and dedication. I'm sure I'm not the only one who can say that through basketball or some other sport, my dad, my brother, and I spent most of our time. But when it came to other Black kids in my area, I noticed their fathers weren't around like mine. And being around different ethnicities growing up, I noticed the racial distinction among kids I went to school with, played ball with, saw on television, and knew within my own family. As an adult, still not having this phenomenon explained to me, I decided to find an explanation through speaking with some of my elders and respected scholars of Black history and the family. I wanted to record my conversations to share with others by producing this documentary, The Black Fatherhood Project. Let's start by looking at fatherhood in Africa, before the colonization, the kidnapping, the trading, and the purchasing of human beings. I want to know how fatherhood existed on the motherland before foreign interruption.
When I look at Africa as a cultural linguistic data set, what I see is that there are about 4 to 5 major cultural linguistic regions that make up all of Africa, pre-colonial invasion, pre-enslavement. And that those 4 or 5 linguistic cultural regions are the one that is the largest is called the Bantu Congo. And that most of our people, most of us, I would even dare say that 100% of all the Africans in the diaspora, the New World, came from one of the subsets of the Bantu Congo people. All right? So we are all one family. We're all Bantu, or we're all Congo. And that common root in terms of parenting, it seems to me, is that we, African people, believe that we come to the world with a mission. Coming from the spiritual realm into the visible realm or the material realm, we forget what our purpose was. And so you have to educate new human beings to be human and to recall what their purpose is. So all the socialization, all the parenting and African traditions, when you look at them, the core theme is developing and bringing out of you that God-given gift that you came to the world to fulfill.
In the African dynamic, fatherhood doesn't stand alone. It is part of a socialization structure, and it's not even the center of that structure, okay? So if you go back into history, the African history, African pre-Christian, you're gonna be dealing with a socialization process that is the center is the woman, okay? Because of course all of us pass through a woman.
The woman is the channel through which her sacred womb, new life comes. So she's more paramount. She's more primary in this duality of divinity.
Fatherhood is not a question of a singular person who has the genetic, material for this particular child or children. It's that group that was socialized together that maintains that relationship that is now responsible for raising this group of children and staying with them and making sure they get protected and supported. So that if somebody dies or something, things didn't change.
My job as a man in my community is to raise, to direct, to counsel, to nurture all children, whether they're my biological children or not.
So when we get to that phrase we use now, it takes a village to raise a child. We understand that phrase in one way, but it's a different phrase when you're actually living in a village and you've actually gone through this process of socialization. What it means to you is much different than what it means to us, right? We're trying to say, let's all help and contribute where we have no obligation to do so, right? Because it's just our will to do so. Your will and your training is much different. So when the mother has a kid, certainly the mother is the one that's raising the child, along with perhaps the other women in the social group, sisters, right? Neighbors, right? They're raising the infant, okay? When the infant male becomes reaching adolescence, now the men of the community come into play. And they, at some point, will take the boy for training, which means helping that boy determine his role in the community as a male. What is his responsibility in that community? What are the expectations of him to play in that community, right? So it's the men that's going to teach him what that is. So the young girl who's raised, when she reaches adolescence, the women, of course, will take her and begin to train her as her role in the community as she reaches adulthood.
The rite of passage really was a signifier of achievement. And so when you have mastered some level of confidence, some level of competence, and some level of consciousness, and I'm saying levels, then the community made judgment on you. And based upon the judgment on you, the community, your family, the community, gave you the right to pass on to the next level of the path, because you're on a path. And so when I'm a 5-year-old, I go through a rite of passage, because now I'm entering into pre-adolescence where there are going to be greater challenges that I have to meet, you see? So rite of passage was not a process, it was a signifier of a point in a process.
Now, different societies would do different initiation rituals, markings and circumcisions or cuts, or there's a lot of different, because there's a lot of societies in Africa, and it's not at all monolithic. But the general consensus is the socialization of that child.
Traditional family forms that we have to rescue. We have to study them, and we have to be very careful, because even Africa as a geographical space has been contaminated, because colonialism did the same damage to continental Africans that enslavement did to diasporic Africans.
In West Africa particularly, the concept was the extended family. And obviously slavery broke that up in terms of bringing Africans here. Whole families were not brought together. But there was a tradition for the extended family. And so even within the system of slavery, there were usually black males who would take on the role of the father figure and provide as much as possible some security and safety for the children. And so this was a way for black men to be involved with their families.
That African spirit, if I can use that language, really was the very thing that allowed us to be on a plantation, to have children, to have semblance of a family, and that be totally disrupted by the whim and will of some vulgar masses. We still had a sense of, that's my child. And that wasn't broken. I think the idea that you my child, that you my man, that you my woman, all that kind of emphasis on belonging, not as ownership, but belonging as proper connection. Like my hand belongs on my arm, my eyes belong in my head. That's the kind of belonging we had. It wasn't ever ownership. Now what slavery tried to do was to translate our meaning of belonging to their meaning of belonging, which was chattel ownership. And so that's the struggle we've had, because we're internalizing their meanings of things.
Good. I could listen to that all day, brother. They were breaking that stuff down. And that piece was from, you said it's called I know the Terry family, Thierry, I think it was. And that's a piece, I like to see the longer piece of that, and maybe, use that with a group. That was pretty good.
There was
what
actually
was the full name of it again, Brother Chris?
Let me see if we can pull that up here. The BlackFatherhoodProject.com, which is a film. Let's see here. I just pulled it up.
Yeah, BlackFatherhoodProject.com. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very impressed with that. That's the kind of stuff we need to have some classes on. I want to pay homage to Brother Paul Carey, who transitioned a few months back, and his wife has now since moved to his wife and daughter. Have now since moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, and they had the Sankofa Institute, and that's the kind of sage information that they would always provide to our community here. And so Brother Paul will be greatly missed, and Yolanda and Yasmin. We're just a tremendous family for this community. Today we're doing training young people once a month through out there at the Life Esteem Center through their organization called Sankofa. And so really impressed with that. Yeah. You do great work, man, finding stuff that we need to, to see and realize. So again, we do have a fatherhood program, and we tried to do it by way of Zoom in the more recent months here, but we're going to go back to in person. And I do want to mention that starting next week, we are opening up our family programs. We're going to do one program over at Living Springs Redeemed Christian Church of God, 3600 Vartan Way in Harrisburg. It's right off of Progress Avenue, behind the radio station there. And like a half a block down from AAA, if you're coming down Progress Avenue, you want to turn right on to Vartan Way and come all the way back, make a left, and then you'll see, the building right there, 3600 Vartan Way. And if you're interested in your family being a part of the Celebrating Families, curriculum, and it's a free program, and we have free childcare, free transportation, and a free meal. Give my wife a call, Patricia Gadsden, at 717-608-2302. 717-608-2302. It's a wonderful, wonderful program. You'll have a lot of fun. We have age-appropriate groups, and anything from daycare, infant care, to the young kids, adolescents, teenage years, and adults. It's great. It's a great program. And then also out at Brother Matt Granderson's church. Oh my goodness, I'm just drawing a blank right now on the address. This is where we had our Kwanzaa festival. It's a wonderful church, and it's two pastors there, not just Brother Granderson, but it's two pastors. Okay, I'm blowing it. But anyhow, we will do. I think we're starting the Strong African American Families there at the church out in Oberlin, and Crossroads Baptist Church. Crossroads Church, not Baptist. Crossroads Church. And if you want to know more about it, just simply give my wife Pat a call, 717-608-2302. And we want to see men, get out there and get involved. The whole family structure. We like to see whole families come out and be a part of these offerings and learn together. It's nothing better than that, learning together, learning how to be a family is a wonderful thing. So again, Brother Chris, thank you for that particular video. I thought it was powerful. Both of them were very powerful, and I hope that you folks will consider our Fatherhood program, which will be on, right at this point, we're looking at Monday nights over at 900 South Arlington Avenue, Monday nights, 900 South Arlington Avenue for our Fatherhood Academy. And then our family programs will take place on Tuesday and Thursday at Living Springs, and Wednesday out at Crossroads Church in Oberlin, right outside of Harrisburg. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, my name is Nathaniel Gadsden, and we bring you a program every single Thursday night and Friday night. Friday nights, we bring you the Writer's Workshop, and we have an outstanding guest tomorrow, Shayna. As you can see her picture right there, she's an outstanding author. And the lady in the front, that is Queenie Clem, and Queenie is the one who brings us these outstanding authors, and she has Queenie's Corner on the Writer's Workshop, and she will introduce this wonderful writer to us, who is also a publisher, and you'll learn a lot from her, and hope that you will come in and just enjoy being a part of the writers community that we've established here some 44 years ago. So check it out. It's called the Writer's Workshop, right here on The Voice, 17104 Harrisburg, and it airs on Facebook Live from 7 to 9 p.m. tomorrow night, every Friday night. You will be, glad you did, okay? So spread the word. And again, thank my brother Fred Waters for coming on tonight. Fred came on literally at the last minute for me, and he, is an excellent martial artist. And we had a chance to explore, his work as a martial artist, and also, there you go, that's a great picture, like that. And also, the fact that he is training people in self-defense. And right now, the brother's being very protective of his health, and I don't blame him. So he's trying to lay a little bit low. So he does everything by Zoom, and he connects with people that way. But check out Brother Fred Waters, because he's doing great work. Always has, a real even-tempered kind of guy, and he knows his martial arts. He knows how to exercise too, and how to stretch and all that kind of good stuff. So you can benefit from his work. God bless you. I'm going to cut it tonight. I want to thank again Brother Chris Thomas for giving us this platform on The Voice. Brother, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Hope to see you tomorrow night.
My pleasure, Dr. Nate. I appreciate the conversation, and I definitely appreciate the work that you've done and are doing in the community, and also for your support of our media platform here at The Voice 17104. God bless you.
Thank you, brother. God bless you, man. Appreciate you. Thank you. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Good night.
Just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit. Hey everybody, it's gospel recording artist J. Nicole Jones. I'm so excited right here on my favorite station in my hometown. Keep it locked for the best in gospel music with Christopher Thomas on The Voice 107.1.